My name is Eleanor Vance, and I am 76 years old. For 50 of those years, my name was synonymous with a revolution in architecture. A quiet revolution fought not with manifestos, but with sunlight, with cross breezes, with the honest grain of reclaimed timber. My late husband, Michael, and I built Vance and Sterling Architects on a simple radical idea: that buildings should breathe. We pioneered sustainable, living architecture, creating structures that worked in harmony with nature, not in defiance of it. Our firm wasn't just a business. It was a philosophy, a promise of integrity carved in sustainably sourced timber and recycled steel. Since Michael passed 5 years ago, I have remained as the chairwoman of the board, a guardian of that legacy. But a guardian, I have learned, is only as strong as the walls she is tasked to protect. And my walls were being torn down from the inside, brick by silent, treacherous brick. The betrayal did not come like a thunderstorm, but like a rising tide, slowly and silently eroding the ground beneath my feet. It was orchestrated by my own grandson, David, and his brilliant, ruthless partner, Chloe. David was the firm's new CEO, a title I had gifted him on his 30th birthday, believing foolishly that he had inherited his grandfather's soul along with his name. Chloe was his chief operating officer, a woman who moved through our world of organic shapes and natural light like a shard of obsidian, beautiful, sharp, and utterly opaque. She saw our green philosophy not as a principle, but as a marketable brand, a veneer to be lacquered onto the surface of raw, profitable ambition. They stood before me now, in the sterile white boardroom that had replaced my husband's warm, wood-paneled office, a room that felt like an operating theater where the soul of our firm was being methodically dissected. On the massive screen behind them was a dazzling 3D rendering of their magnum opus, the Phoenix Tower. It was a gleaming, arrogant spire of glass and steel, set to be the tallest, most luxurious residential building in the city. And they were using my name, my reputation, my entire life's work to sell it. As you can see, Chloe said, her voice as smooth as polished chrome, her laser pointer dancing across the screen. The Phoenix is the culmination of the Vance and Sterling legacy. It will be the greenest skyscraper in the country, fully LEED Platinum certified, with a zero carbon footprint and a revolutionary biofiltered air system. I looked at the blueprints I had managed to access late last night, my heart a cold stone in my chest. The real blueprints, not the sanitized version she was presenting. The specifications for the structural steel in these plans are 15% below industry standard for a building of this height. Chloe, I said, my voice quiet but clear, carrying across the silent, tense room. And the sustainably sourced timber you're marketing is coming from a non-certified supplier in Southeast Asia known for clear cutting. This building isn't a legacy. It's a lie. David sighed, a sound of pure, patronizing exhaustion, a sound I had come to dread. He wouldn't look at me. He looked at the other board members, a silent plea for them to share in his burden of managing the dotty old matriarch. Grandma, he said, the word a soft, dismissive weapon. We've been over this. You're looking at outdated drafts. The material science has evolved since your time. These things are complicated. Chloe stepped in, her smile a beautiful sharp blade. What David means, Eleanor, is that your invaluable expertise is in classic design, in aesthetics. The technical side, the business side, is our domain now. Perhaps it's best if we don't trouble you with the details. We wouldn't want to cause you any undue stress. Stress. That was their new word for it. They were publicly, gently dismissing me, painting me as a fragile old woman who didn't understand her own field. They were using my name to sell a gilded cage built of cheap materials and dangerous lies. I knew in that moment that I had to stop them, but they had locked me out so completely. My server access was restricted under the guise of new security protocols. My old team, the architects and engineers who had shared my and Michael's vision, had been downsized or pushed into early retirement. Every concern I raised in a board meeting was met with that same placating, condescending tone, followed by a private email from Chloe to the other board members, confirming my latest episode of confusion. They weren't just ignoring me, they were erasing me. And in 2 weeks, at the grand topping out gala for the Phoenix Tower, they needed my signature on the final financing documents. It was the last piece of leverage I had, the final link to the power I once wielded. They were confident they would get it. They thought I was beaten. But they had forgotten one thing. My husband was not just an architect. He was a visionary, a man who saw the future, and he had left behind a ghost in the machine. A ghost that was about to wake up. The war for the soul of my company had been a slow, methodical siege. It started with the restructuring. David and Chloe, in their first 6 months, streamlined my most trusted senior partners into early retirement. Men and women who had built this firm with us, who understood our ethos in their bones. They were replaced by a new generation of ambitious young architects, poached from rival firms, who worshipped Chloe's cutthroat efficiency and saw our legacy not as a philosophy to be upheld, but as a brand to be exploited. My old team was gone. I was an island, surrounded by a sea of strangers in my own company. Then came the whispers. The subtle professional assassination. Stories began to appear in influential architecture blogs and financial journals, planted by Chloe's PR machine. They spoke of a generational shift at Vance and Sterling. They praised David and Chloe's bold new vision. And they always included a carefully worded paragraph about me. Eleanor Vance, the firm's revered matriarch, is said to be taking a step back. Sources say Mrs. Vance is finding it difficult to adapt to modern methods. Her sentimental attachment to outdated, costly materials is a charming, but ultimately unsustainable business model. They were building a narrative that I was a relic, a charming but senile old woman holding the firm back from its glorious, profitable future. Their masterstroke was the Phoenix Tower. It was a project I had initially conceived with Michael, a dream of a truly living, breathing building that would be a gift to the city. In their hands, it had become a hollow caricature. They kept my name attached as the legacy design consultant, a title that gave them my credibility without requiring my actual input. They knew that with my name on the project, the city permits would be fast-tracked, the environmental groups would be silenced, and the high-end eco-conscious buyers would line up, checkbooks in hand. It was a brilliant, cynical, and utterly soulless strategy. I tried to fight them on the details. I knew the building was a fraud. The breaking point, the moment my despair almost consumed me, came when I discovered they were using a cheaper, non-fire retardant brand of insulation throughout the tower's residential floors, despite marketing the building as the safest, most technologically advanced in the city. I bypassed David and Chloe and went directly to the project's lead engineer, a young man named Ben Carter. I showed him my calculations, my own risk analysis. He went pale. "You're right, Mrs. Vance," he whispered, looking around the empty hallway nervously. I raised these same concerns with Chloe. She told me to run the numbers again until I got the answer she wanted. She said the risk analysis was well within acceptable parameters, and that meeting the bare minimum of the city's fire code was all that was legally required. "We don't build to the bare minimum," I said, my voice shaking with a rage I hadn't felt in years. "We have never been that firm. We build to be the best, the safest. We build to protect the people who live in our buildings." Ben looked at the floor. "I have a family, Mrs. Vance. A mortgage. I can't lose this job." That night, I knew I had truly lost. They had insulated themselves legally. They had cultivated a culture of fear. My word against theirs was just the rambling of a confused old woman. They would get my signature one way or another. They had already had their lawyers draft a petition for power of attorney, citing my increasingly erratic and obstructive behavior. They were going to steal my company, pervert my legacy, and put hundreds of future residents in a beautiful, glittering death trap. I retreated to my husband's study, the one room in the house they hadn't dared to modernize. I felt a despair so profound it was a physical weight. I ran my hand over the familiar blueprints and design awards that lined the walls. My eyes fell on an old, framed photograph. It was of Michael and me in the 1980s, standing proudly next to our first computer-aided design CAD workstation, a behemoth of a machine that had cost a fortune. He had been a pioneer, one of the first architects of his generation to see the revolutionary potential of digital design. He had built our firm's proprietary design software, Archangel, from the ground up. It was an elegant, powerful program that was still, in its modern iteration, the backbone of the company's entire workflow. And then I remembered a strange conversation shortly before he passed. He was frail, but his mind was as sharp as ever. He had been showing me a new feature of the software, a complex, encrypted data verification system he had been working on in secret. Think of it as the building's conscience, Ellie, he had said with a cryptic smile. It knows what it's supposed to be made of. It can be fooled for a while, but it will never forget the truth. Driven by a desperate, illogical hope, I went to his old filing cabinet. It was a beautiful antique piece made of dark oak, tucked away in the back of the bottom drawer. Behind decades of old hand-drawn plans was a small locked metal box. I found the key in his desk drawer, in a hidden compartment I had forgotten existed. Inside the box there was no will, no secret bank account. There was just a single sealed envelope and a set of old heavy-looking 5 1/4-inch floppy disks. My hands trembled as I opened the letter. My dearest Eleanor. It began, his familiar, strong handwriting a balm to my frayed nerves. If you are reading this, it means David has chosen the path of a fool, and the wolves are at the door. Do not despair. I knew this day might come. David has my heart, but he has his mother's ambition, and sometimes that is a dangerous and blinding combination. The company is not protected by lawyers, my love, but by logic. By pure, unalterable code. I have left you a key not to a safe, but to the very soul of the firm. The letter explained his final secret project. He had embedded a legacy protocol deep within the core code of the Archangel software. It was a digital ghost, a silent, incorruptible guardian of our principles. The protocol was dormant, invisible to anyone, even the most skilled programmer. It could only be activated by a single specific event: the attempted removal or alteration of Michael Sterling's original, hard-coded founder's credentials from the software's master file. He knew that in their hubris, in their all-consuming desire to claim his legacy as their own, they would eventually try to erase him completely. When triggered, the protocol would not crash the system. It would do something far more devastating. It would unlock a hidden subroutine, a truth serum for architecture. This subroutine would, in real time, cross-reference every single material specification in a project's final signed-off blueprints against the original high-quality standards he had set as the unalterable default for a Vance and Sterling project. Any discrepancies, any cheap substitutes, any uncertified materials, any dangerous shortcuts would be flagged. Not with an error code buried in a log file, but with a catastrophic, unmissable visual override on any 3D rendering generated by the software. The letter ended with a simple, chilling instruction. Give them the stage, Ellie. Let their pride be their downfall. The ghost will do the rest. I felt a jolt of adrenaline, a surge of hope so powerful it almost brought me to my knees. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed someone on the inside, a digital ghost of my own. I thought of Maya, a brilliant young programmer I had personally mentored. A woman who understood Michael's elegant, old-school coding style better than anyone. David and Chloe, in their infinite wisdom, had restructured her department and pushed her out 6 months ago for being not a team player. I found her working for a small cybersecurity startup. I went to her apartment. I showed her the letter. I showed her the discs. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. Mr. Sterling was a legend, she said, her voice a reverent whisper. They called his core code unbreakable poetry. They never should have fired me. Let's wake up the ghost. For the next week we worked in secret. Maya, using the old master-level access codes from the disks, was able to remotely and silently verify that the legacy protocol was still intact, a sleeping dragon in the heart of their servers. Now all we had to do was wait for them to poke it. The bait was the upcoming gala. I knew they would want to present the final investor-ready 3D fly-through of the Phoenix Tower. And to do that, to claim it as truly finally theirs, they would have to remove my husband's last lingering signature from the software that created it. 2 days before the event, Maya sent me a one-word message. Triggered. They had taken the bait. The trap was set. The topping out gala for the Phoenix Tower was the social event of the year. The grand ballroom of the city's most expensive hotel was filled with investors, politicians, and the city's elite. David and Chloe were the stars of the show, accepting congratulations, their faces glowing with triumph. I played my part perfectly, the frail but proud matriarch, sitting quietly at the head table, a gentle, slightly vacant smile on my face. Chloe leaned over to me, her perfume cloying, her smile a beautiful lie. Just one last signature on the financing papers after the presentation, Eleanor, and your legacy is secure forever. Then you can finally rest. I have no doubt it will be, I replied, meeting her gaze. They took the stage to thunderous applause. The lights dimmed. Tonight, David began, his voice filled with a practiced, convincing emotion. We honor the past, but we unveil the future. A future of sustainable luxury, of uncompromised safety, of a new standard for our city. I present to you the Phoenix Tower. The massive screen behind them lit up with a breathtaking photorealistic 3D rendering of the skyscraper. The virtual camera swooped through luxurious apartments, state-of-the-art gyms, and lush rooftop gardens. Chloe's voice narrated the journey, her words painting a picture of ecological perfection and uncompromised quality. Every piece of timber is sustainably sourced from certified forests, she purred, as the camera panned across a beautiful hardwood floor. Every pane of glass is triple glazed for maximum energy efficiency. Every beam of structural steel is recycled and exceeds all international safety standards. It was a beautiful, magnificent lie. And it was time for the truth. I gave a small, almost imperceptible nod to Maya, who was disguised as a technician at the back of the room. I stood up and walked to the secondary podium, the one reserved for my short, heartfelt remarks. A beautiful presentation, David. Chloe, I said, my voice clear and strong, amplified through the suddenly quiet ballroom. It truly is a testament to my husband's vision. So much so, that I think he would want us to see the real beauty of it. The beauty that's on the inside. I held up a small, simple remote. My husband's Archangel software always had a hidden diagnostic feature. He called it the integrity scan, a way to ensure the final product was true to the original design. Let's run it, shall we? Before they could react, I pressed the button. On the screen, the beautiful 3D model flickered for a second, and then the nightmare began. A bright, angry red overlay appeared on the hardwood floor, with flashing brutalist text. Warning: non-certified laminate. Fire rating failed. The camera panned to a massive structural beam. Another red box appeared. Warning: low-grade imported steel. Structural integrity compromised by 30%. Catastrophic failure risk under seismic stress. The screen filled with red alerts. The elegant glass walls were flagged. Insufficient glazing. Heat loss 50% above promise spec. LEED certification. Invalid. The fire retardant insulation was flagged. Warning: highly flammable material. Toxic fume risk in case of fire. The ghost in the machine was not just flagging errors. It was screaming them. The final blow came as a series of internal emails and budget spreadsheets flashed on the screen, projected over the now horrifying blood-red 3D model. Emails from Chloe to suppliers demanding the cheapest possible materials, with phrases like "find a workaround for the certification." Emails from David overriding the frantic safety concerns of his own engineers. A budget that showed they had billed the investors for premium German steel while purchasing substandard, uncertified steel from a cut-rate mill, pocketing the multi-million-dollar difference. The entire fraud, the entire dangerous, greedy, sociopathic lie, was laid bare for their investors, their buyers, and the world's press to see. The room was in absolute chaos. People were shouting into their phones. Investors were literally running for the exits, their faces masks of fury. David stood frozen, his face ashen, staring at the screen as if he had seen a real ghost. Chloe just stared at me, her mask of composure finally shattered, revealing the desperate, cornered creature beneath. The Phoenix Tower was not a monument to the future. It was a tomb, and they had just been buried alive in it. The aftermath was swift and brutal. The Phoenix Project was shut down by the city the next morning, a towering skeleton of shame on the skyline. David and Chloe faced a barrage of lawsuits from investors, buyers, and the city itself. A federal investigation for fraud was launched. My firm, was on the brink of collapse, its name synonymous with the biggest architectural scandal in a generation. But it was not dead. I did not let it die. I called a press conference. I did not make excuses. I laid out the truth, took responsibility for my own misplaced trust, and made a promise. A promise to rebuild not just the company but the trust that had been broken. I rehired my old team. I promoted Maya to Chief Technology Officer. Our first project was not a skyscraper. It was a series of small, beautifully designed, truly sustainable community housing projects. We were returning to our roots. My relationship with my grandson is gone. He is facing the legal consequences of his actions. I feel no triumph in his downfall, only a profound, aching sadness for the boy he once was and the man he failed to become. Tonight I am sitting in my husband's study. The house is quiet. On the computer screen, the Archangel software is open to a blank page, ready for a new design. I place my hand on the screen, a silent thank you to the ghost who had guarded my legacy. He had built the company's conscience, and in the end it had saved us. To anyone listening, I want you to know this. The truth has a way of surviving. It can be buried, it can be silenced, it can be ignored, but it is always there. Waiting in the code, in the history, in the heart of things. Legacy is not a brand you can market. It is a promise you must keep. My name is Eleanor Vance, and I am still building.